Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? Matt here with YoVideogames, and I'm back with another review. This one, I guess, a long time coming, and that is the long-anticipated Ghost of Yotei. Now, I completed this game rather quickly, but I also wanted to kind of like dive into it a little further, do this little post-game, kind of gather my thoughts, before I really, went in and said, hey, how do I really feel about this game overall? And yeah, I'm here to talk about it. And I know this is coming a little late, and those of you who gonna get it probably already got it. But for those of you who are a little on the fence, or were just completely blindsided by the 1,000,000,001 games that decided to all come out on the same month, let alone the same week or the same day as Ghost of Yotei, I'm gonna hear and talk about how I felt about this game, because this is a big AAA Sony first-party game, full price. And, at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, man, it's a lot of money. Is this worth it? And let's just get right in there. And let's start with the gameplay loop. Is, again, sequel to Tsushima, but is not on Tsushima. It is now in Hokkaido, Japan. Completely different map, completely different setting, era. Over 300 years later after Tsushima. So you are not going to be retreading any ground, any physical ground or mapped areas. This is all brand new. So that's kind of cool, but they've kind of really changed it up. Now, in the original Ghost of Tsushima, it was sort of open world, because you had about the bottom third of Tsushima to explore at the beginning, and then you opened up the second third in the middle, and then at the end of the game, you opened up the top third of the map of the island. And this game is actually a lot different than that. You kind of open up you start in the little middle spot of Hokkaido, and you have the sort of freedom to go into different biomes around Hokkaido in kind of your own order, if you will. But the really weird, interesting thing here is that it's not just sort of like, hey, here's the main bad guys or whatever, the main the main quest line. Now it's kind of splintered a bit. Now you have a sort of detective mode bounty system thing. And that's probably like the biggest change to the gameplay here, is that it isn't just sort of like, here's this sort of open world with the main quest lines that are sort of established from the Grand Theft Auto games. This is actually more like, here, you kind of wander around and you pick up clues. You might just get into a random fight with some enemies, and they'll give you like a sort of clue that goes onto the map, and they're in the form of these little cards, these little they look kind of like Hanafunda manufacturing cards. And there's a whole detective aspect to this game where you go do things, and then you slowly sort of pick up more and more stuff. But like really early on, you sort of get information where it's like, hey, the main Yotei 6 that you're hunting, like this guy's over here, that guy's over there, and this guy's over in that spot. So then it's like, okay, you can kind of go off in whichever kind of order you want. There is some things that are restricted, like you cannot go everywhere. You can't say activate or try to hunt everyone all at the same time. You do sort of have to kind of do things in a little bit of a linearity fashion. And that's probably the most surprising aspect about this game, is that this is not some big interconnected area. You go, for example, when you want to go to the northern part of Hokkaido, you have to go through a canyon. So you have to go up to a point on the map and get on a boat, and it kind of loads you into the next area. And then there's other areas where you'll kind of ride through canyons or whatever to get to a different part of the world map. So the game is actually more wide linear than anything. You have these sort of open, like kind of valley areas, and they have sort of narrow canyons that splinter off and go into the different areas, like the plains, the coastline, the ridge. So it's actually kind of just, it makes it different, but it also really helps in having this world and this map feel that it's more varied. And it's not just like, okay, it's not just snow, snowy forest. It's not the whole map. That's a part of the map, but it's not the whole map. And it doesn't have this feeling of like, most of the map kind of looks the same with slight variations, where now certain areas like this looks really different. Like you could pick a screenshot from any part of the game world and go like, oh, I know where that is now. And that's actually kind of cool. I think that's actually a bit of an upgrade there, where even though it kind of loses that sort of, I can just walk east to west, north to south, like the whole stretch of the game world, and not be obstructed. That's not true here. You're going to see all kinds of borders and edges of the map, and like things will like come out. Like there'll just be chunks of mountain ranges where they just put like giant bushes in front of you and you can't go through them. And it's just like, nope, can't go up this hill, or you can't go through this bush. Like we hard lock you. So there's definitely more invisible walls in Ghost of Yotei than there was in Tsushima. But the trade-off is that you're going to get things that look a little more curated. It's kind of like walking around at a Disneyland or like a theme park where they kind of try to hide every land and area from each other, so you can't just stand in one spot of a theme park, look across the other, and see 10 different biomes or 10 different themed areas. Like every area sort of like is blocked off from each other. So, sight lines and all that stuff. So, yeah, it's kind of a weird trade-off there. What hasn't really changed anywhere near as much as you would think is the combat. Functions on the same real-time combat like abilities as the last game. There's two major additions, which is you can now pick up and throw random objects at things, and you can disarm enemies, and they can disarm you. And this at least is some fun stuff, so you can like just pick up a random enemy sword or spear off the ground and just throw it at another guy, and that's very fun. It's very satisfying. I think the interactivity of throwing objects and especially other weapons, random other weapons you pick up at enemies, makes the combat a lot more fun. But yeah, and then the disarming is just pretty cool. But what hasn't really changed is even though there are now a bunch of different weapons, they all function exactly the same as the stances. In Tsushima, you had 4 different stances. Here you have 5 different weapons, and the weapons are all basically hard counters. So it's like, okay, if you're facing someone who has a katana, you just katana is katana. But like if someone's holding a spear, you use dual swords. If someone has a shield, you use the hook and ball chain thing, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but you go for it. And if it's like a big brute enemy, you use the odachi. So you replace stances with completely different weapons, and I actually vastly prefer this because I think it makes a very visually interesting and it's just easier to remember. Where it's like if you see someone running at you with a spear, you immediately pull out dual swords. And if you see certain other people running at you, use the spear is good against another type of weapon. So rather than just like, oh, what stance do I have to be in? It's all like, oh, no. A big guy, big sword, someone with a shield, get the thing that breaks the shield, So I think visually that's all good. What isn't really good and what hasn't really changed at all, in fact, some people kind of argue it might have even gotten worse, is the sort of moment-to-moment gameplay fighting mechanics. Mostly the parry. The parry, it's a major function of the game, but it doesn't really work in any sort of consistency. A big part of this is that attacks that can be parried are regular attacks and what are called blue glint attacks, where a big blue glowing orb appears on an enemy's weapon before they swing it. You can parry those, and you can parry regular attacks. If it's a red glint, you see a big red X flash, you can't parry that, you have to dodge it. And then if you see them glowing yellow, you have to hold down triangle and then do like a heavy attack to disarm them, or they're going to disarm you. It's it's one or the other. But yeah, like the parry system doesn't really work in any sort of consistent fashion, and I've even beaten the hardest bosses in the game, the ones that can one hit you, and so you have to fight a whole battle, nonstop parrying every single attack and not screw up. And I can just safely say, like, the biggest problem is that, like, one, there's 2 issues here. One is the parry is on a weird prediction. You have to parry before the attack even hits you. And I mean, like, way before the attack even hits you. And this isn't like, say, Street Fighter or Devil May Cry or even, like, Metal Gear Rising or Bayonetta, where parries seem to really, like, okay, as the enemy is hitting you, you parry them back. This is like, no. You have to press the parry button way before the attack connects. The other problem is that the blue glint that they show before an enemy hits you can happen at any different point during an attack animation. There is no consistency. It's not like, okay, if an enemy glows blue, that means you have to hit the parry button within, 15, 30 frames. It could happen any point. A person could glow blue and then just spin around like a crazy man and then finally swing like 3 seconds later. Or they could attack immediately. They could glow blue and then they'll attack within like a nanosecond. So there's no consistency to the blue glints, and it's a huge problem. There's some placebo effect. I don't know if it's placebo or real, but people feel like if you are equipping the counter weapon, it's easier to parry. Like the parry window expands if you have the proper counter weapon. I don't even know if that's true, but you can parry. You can parry any attack with any weapon, but there just doesn't seem to be any consistency to it. And it's kind of like the most unfortunate thing, because this was like sort of the biggest problem in the last game. Is like parries are nice, but my God, it really want you to parry so far before an enemy attacks you. Then and again, like the whole rock paper scissors mechanic is still here in full force. And yeah, I mean, going forward, it would be if they do decide to make a third game in the Ghost series, I think fixing the parry mechanic is kind of like should be priority one, or just fixing the combat. There's still a lot of sort of Western design combat where characters sort of like magnetize and zip over and sort of float over towards enemies they're attacking between left and right. If you're going between different if you're in a group and you're fighting different people at once, there's a weird you get like that weird sort of magnet floaty feel to it. But again, like it doesn't really ever feel good. Like I guess the idea was that they wanted to try to ground it in realism, but who cares about realism? In a game that has a mystical bear that can teleport and is is immortal and hunts you. So again, this is one of those games where it's like, yeah, you could say you're grounded. It's grounded until it's not. At which point I would just say, hey, forget hyper-realism. It doesn't make the combat better. It's actually kind of making it worse. It's holding it back, if anything. But yeah, like it's probably like the biggest major gripe I have with this game is that the combat's not really much improved from Tsushima. There's better clarity with the different weapons, but the actual timing and the intricate mechanics of it, they're not any better. In fact, they might even be worse, or slightly more off. So yeah, that's the big one right there. Is like if you didn't like the gameplay or if you didn't like the combat in Tsushima, you're not gonna like it in Yotei. If you're more of a stealth person, you can still stealth like crazy. All the stealth and standoff and all those other things just carry over straight from Tsushima. They function exactly the same. The biggest addition, biggest, most fun addition is, again, throwing weapons, and there is a wolf who at first shows up randomly, but you're going to find things later on through the course of the game to have the wolf show up more consistently, and the wolf is very fun. But it is just a friendly NPC that sort of helps and distracts you. It becomes really useful if you upgrade the wolf's abilities. But yeah, like the wolf is like the best part of the combat. And it's hardly an addition. It's just like, okay, you can have an AI companion at sometimes in battle. Now, as far as the graphics go, this was kind of the one thing where some people were like, hey, this doesn't look that much better. I mean, the testament to how good Tsushima looked. But Yotei, some people think, it's like, oh, this doesn't really look that much better. However, playing this game, you boot this up. You play an hour of Tsushima and then play an hour of Yotei. I mean, play 10 minutes of Tsushima, then play 10 minutes of Yotei. It will be immediately apparent Yotei is a much better looking game than Tsushima. And Tsushima already looked amazing, but the fidelity, the detail, the insane amount of sort of foliage and the way it reacts and how it animates, it's a huge step up. Like, obviously, it's not, say, PS1 to PS2 or nothing, but it is a much better looking game. But it only really becomes apparent when you're sitting down, you got like, a nice 4K monitor in front of you, or even a 1080p, because again, if you're playing on a PS5 vanilla and you want to play at 60 frames, you have to play it at 1080p, and it still looks amazing, and it runs extremely well. That's kind of the one thing we can say about the graphics. There's multiple graphics options. They're all good. The game is very stable. It doesn't really dip much. Incredibly solid, stable performance. In a sea of games that are stutterfests from Unreal Engine, this game like excels really hard at being like, it is consistent, it is smooth, it is fluid. You have options. You have 3 options on vanilla, 4 on a PS5 Pro. Beautiful looking game, but just absolutely great looking. One thing though, this is a nitpick, but it's a huge one for me. There is no way in Ghost of Yotei whatsoever to change the weather that there was in Tsushima. You could change the weather in Tsushima at any time, and as you progress through the game, you found different songs to play on the flute, which would make different weather patterns. But you had like the default was to make it sunny. No way to do that in Yotei, and this is incredibly annoying because this actually fucks over the game's graphics more than it helps them. I understand Sucker Punch is in Seattle, and I understand the people working there probably haven't seen much of the sun in their entire lives, but that's not really something you want to sort of put into your video game. I know Hokkaido is northern Japan. I know the weather can get pretty cruddy up there. I know it can be very rainy, very snowy. But so much of what Tsushima got praised for and why it was so beautiful, because it was this hyperactive, it was hypersaturated, beautiful, and you could alter the weather at any point. The only way you can alter weather in Yotei is in photo mode, and who cares at that point? You can't just roam around the game. It's hilarious to me how much of this game, in the press material and stuff they sent us, was like, so insistent on go, explore, enjoy the beauty of this world. And the game itself is constantly trying to take away that beauty. The opening area has like forced gray clouds over it. You know, thematically, it's very somber. It's very sad, narratively speaking. It's supposed to be like, you know, looking like this. But like you go through the whole game and you kind of realize I spent most of this game in a gray overcast the whole time. It's like going to visit Seattle for like 3 months or something. It's mind-boggling to me. They had a mechanic in Tsushima, and they just didn't put it in. You have an instrument, you have the shamisen, and it does a bunch of different things now than the flute did in the first game, but they didn't have a weather-changing song. All they needed was a weather-changing song. That's all it needed, one song to change the weather, but they didn't put it in. I don't know if this is going to be DLC or what, but the game kind of weirdly, actively tries to fuck over its own graphical splendor with just constantly having way too much cloudy days, cloudy overcast days. Like I didn't even get it rain that much. And sometimes there's snowy and there's blizzard conditions, which just make the game look like mud. But I didn't even get that much. On occasion you would do something where like completing a side quest would make it sunny, and all of a sudden the game literally felt like it went up like a whole graphical generation when it suddenly didn't have this flat, boring, gray, cloudy lighting, which is natural, but having like just like the sun radiating things and making everything like all the colors pop, and it's like, and I can't just do that. I can never just turn on the game and make it look gorgeous. I have to turn on the game and make it, look like, you're on like a boring like fall day, in the Pacific Northwest, like, hoping to see the sun in the next 9 months of your life. Like mind-boggling, just mind-boggling that they didn't have a weather control option in this game when it was literally in the last one. It actively fucks their own game over. But yeah, like that being said, again, beautiful looking game. Again, it is much better than Tsushima on a technical level. But holy God, you need to put this back in? Holy shit. Musically, this game does seem to sort of eschew a mixture between the last game, which was very traditional sounding Japanese instruments, which are still here, and it has a sort of very Western film, or it feels like Ennio Morricone. All of his scores for the classic Sergio Leone films kind of feels like it's fused in here with this kind of like neat fusion of spaghetti Western and classic samurai cinema. And it works really well when you can fucking hear it. And again, I know there is the Watanabe mode, which makes it lo-fi beats playing the whole time, and they have different beats when you're just wandering around, and different, more upbeat stuff when you're in combat. And it's weird, and it's interesting, and it's fun, but I didn't really feel the need or want to play Watanabe mode for too long. But yeah, as far as like the main game's musical score goes, it's very good when you can fucking hear it. The weirdest fucking thing is that if you look at the official soundtrack for this game, it has themes for every major area of the game that are about 3 to 4 minutes long each. I don't ever remember them playing. If they did, they played fucking once and never again. Most of the time you'll wander through the game, you'll walk into an area, it'll play like some really low atmospheric hum for about 30 seconds, and then it's fucking gone, and it's back to just listening to the wind and your own footsteps. And then yeah, of course the music kicks up when you're in combat, but it's like it's hard to appreciate music when you're constantly having to look for openings and you're fighting things. Now, that being said, there is some amazing boss themes. Like, even the last boss theme is really, really good. Again, I think the music is good when it fucking plays. But again, we have this assholishly Western design philosophy of atmosphere is king. You should just hear the wind and be listening for birds chirping to show you don't want to distract people with music. And to that I say, fuck you. I want to hear music in my video game. If I want to hear leaves rustling and squirrels and birds, I will walk outside. I will go take a fucking walk. I don't need to pay $70 to hear atmosphere. Like, I want, you hire a great composer who makes great tracks. It'd be nice to fucking hear them more than once in the game. And this is a huge sticking point for me. It's a huge thorn in my side. I've always bitching about this, but like, fuck, man. Like, why go to the effort? Why go to all this effort with this composer and all the live musicians and all the live instrumentation if you don't want people to fucking hear it? It's like, man, you could blink and you miss it. Like, it's wild to me that they would do something like this. But again, Western gaming philosophy, I don't get it. Y'all need to fucking get over this shit, this atmospheric shit, like, environmental moodiness. Go fuck yourself. If you're going to hire composers and live musicians and instrumentations, orchestra, fucking use it and let me hear it. But yeah, good music otherwise when you do. Narratively speaking, this is kind of like subjective here. I think most people are in agreement that generally speaking, Atsu is a much more interesting character than Jin. Jin is kind of a wet blanket. He grows through the game. I guess. Not really. Atsu's just more interesting. Her plight is more interesting. They do a much better job at incorporating characters that Atsu meets on her journey into the narrative of the game. Her reactions are there's a lot more humor. There's moments of levity. There's like just good stuff here. A lot of it's just really well done. Even with the villains, there's some interesting things here, and there's some good twists and turns along the way. But the one thing that does kind of fail a little bit is that the main villain, Saito, he's kind of like a diet version of Dutch from Red Dead Redemption. 0-calorie Dutch, I would call him. They try to do this sympathetic angle with him. If you do flashbacks, if you find the scrolls littered throughout the world that, they were his diary journals, and you sort of see how, he had it rough too or whatever, but like, he doesn't have the charisma. He doesn't have the presence. He kind of just comes across as just like, he kind of comes across like a weak bitch in my mind, where it's like, okay, yeah, he suffered some hardships, so my friends weren't there for me, so I'm gonna go kill all their family in front of them because I'm mad. It's like, go fuck yourself, dude. You looked into the abyss and blinked. He just doesn't come across as like good. Like, it wasn't. I didn't even want to like, I can't wait to kick his ass, and it wasn't even kind of like I hate this guy. You love to hate him, you hate to love him. He's neither that. I'm like, he's just a bitch. Just a bitch who couldn't get over something, and he doesn't get enough screen time, honestly. He gets like these little interludes between major story beat moments, and he's kind of talking. The most interesting he is there's a point in the game where you're sneaking around something and you eavesdrop on him, and he's having a conversation about how he doesn't care who a person is, where they're from, what gender they are, whatever. He'll have female samurais, which were already a thing. This isn't actually anything all that new. He's talking about like, I'll make peasants into soldiers. I don't care. And it's like, that's the most interesting thing he gets, and it's just from a sort of like offhand eavesdrop that you get while physically moving around and sneaking around an area. But yeah, he's kind of Atsu's great, and again, all the characters she meets, she forms a much more interesting and much more fun party of people that she's with. than Jin. Jin's story is pretty straightforward and pretty bland in comparison. And again, there was always the funny aspect of it, like, oh, samurai and honor and samurai. We don't poison armies. Oh, well, please, motherfucker, please. Samurai would absolutely poison people if they could. There was always this really funny romanticized version. Now, that being said, I have to dock Sucker Punch pretty hard narratively for a major aspect of this game. Now, this game is supposed to take place in about 1607 in Hokkaido, or Ezo as it was called at the time. And in the game, they went way out of their way to showcase the Ainu people of northern Japan. They also went way out of their way to show the Matsume clan, who went into Hokkaido from the quote-unquote mainland at this exact period in time. However, narratively in the game, the Matsume clan, which are basically the police force in this game world, they are there to hunt down Saito and his evil rogue samurai army and bring peace to the north. In reality, the Matsume clan was sent to the north to deal with the Ainu. And when I mean deal with, I mean make bad trades and then assimilate them and erase their people, their religion, their culture. So the fact that Sucker Punch went out of their way to put the Ainu people in there who were almost assimilated or genocided out of existence in history by the Matsume clan, who they also put in the game, but they never actually meet in-game. In Ghost of Yotei, Matsume clan never talk about the Ainu people. They never meet them. There's never any context for them at all. They pretend they don't exist, and the Ainu people pretend the Matsume clan doesn't exist either. And it comes off as really this really weird, like, okay, let's not make Imperial Japan from 400 years ago look bad. And I have to dock them points for this. This is it's almost like lying through omission, where you are blatantly ignoring the whole reason why Matsume went to the north to bring peace and stability to northern Japan, and that was to get rid of the Ainu people. To make an example of this, imagine you were playing a game where the Spanish conquistadors, led by Cortez, were there to stop Cutler Beckett, then the British people, from Pirates of the Caribbean, and at no point does Cortez ever talk about the native tribes or the native culture of of Central and South America. And instead, it's just all about the Spanish conquistadors were totally there to bring justice to these crazy, other Spanish or other British warlords that we made up for this game. They never talked to the native people. That never happened. Like, you have to understand, this is like an insane sort of omission historically for a game that is priding itself on omission, that went out of its way to showcase the Ainu people and all the artifacts you can collect and the culture and the history, and then also show the people who were there to get rid of them. But they never talked to each other. They were busy with our fictional army. I gotta dock you points, man. I'm a history guy. This was kind of shocking to me to see that they would actually put these two groups of people there and then pretend like they never talked to each other, even though there is a very dark history between them. And that it happened exactly when this game takes place. And the fact that the game just ignores that, I'm sorry, Sucker Punch. I'm putting your feet to the fire on this one. You really, it is a tricky subject, but history is never clean. It's never easy, and you should embrace that. And it should have been part of the game in some way, form, or fashion. And I gotta like give this game a little shit for kind of like omitting a insanely obvious, huge part of history in this exact place and period in time. But otherwise, yeah, overall speaking, did I like Ghost of Yotei? Yeah, I did like Ghost of Yotei. It is beautiful. I had a good time wandering around. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed them more in this game. I loved the wolf companion. I loved helping the wolf companion every chance I got. It was good upgrades. There was good side quests. The side quests in this game, again, way better than Tsushima. The detective mode, sort of, again, with the sort of playing cards that you get all these clues that are not necessarily tied to the main bosses, but all kinds of side quests. They're way more, they feel more natural. They feel more organic. Everything feels more lived in. There's more people. Like, this is just a much more alive world than even Tsushima was. And I appreciate that greatly. And I had a good time with it. But there are, again, there are some nitpicks like that I have, especially with like not being able to do anything about the weather at any point, not being able to hear the music enough, anywhere near enough. Again, the combat definitely needed more work than it got. It's a little too similar and a little too annoying. All the grievances of the combat from Tsushima are still here. And again, like narratively, if you're gonna put a game, set a game as a historical fiction in a set place in a set time, and include, you know, these two groups of people, and then pretend they never talk to each other, that is, to me, that's a little bit unforgivable there. But I still think it is a good game. I still think it is a fun game to play. And hopefully I can bring a little bit, you know, shed a little bit more light maybe on maybe a little bit about the Ainu people you didn't know about. But yeah, it was a good fun time, but I can't sit here and say like, oh, this is one of the greatest games. It's not even one of the best games I played this year. Overall, I'm going to give this game an 8.5. Maybe a little, maybe an 8, but more, I'm thinking more 8.5. I did enjoy the game. I played it like almost nonstop when I got it. But it's not the slam dunk that Tsushima was. And, you know, I can overlook a game like highly romanticizing, you know, the samurai, especially when they are still when the game is critical of the samurai culture, even if that culture is kind of bullshit in the game. But this one is a little bit like, nah, dude, this was pretty seriously bad what happened, you know, in this time and period. And the fact that you're ignoring that completely, nah, can't ignore it this time. So yeah, enjoyed the game, but I have a little bit, there are a few things that kind of threw me off on it. And again, if they ever do a third Ghost game, please fix your combat, please fix your music, bring back the weather changing mechanic, and for the love of God, do not shy away from the ugly parts of history, because history is, you know, the ugly parts of history are what make us human and what teach us. And don't remove the things that can teach us the most from it in your historical fictional setting. But that's all I got to say on Ghost of Yotei. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you on the channel. Later, dudes.